Good evening. Dr MS Swaminathan, the architect of India's Green Revolution, is no more. The AIDEM pays tributes to this towering personality who has changed the destiny of Indian agriculture. So to join us in paying tributes to this amazing personality, we have Pallava Bagla, who is one of the towering science journalists from India. He has been contributing to national and international news publications and writing extensively about science and technology. Pallava Baglaji, you're welcome to the AIDEM Interactions.
Thank you.
You have a long association with Dr. Swaminathan. You have been interacting with him for long. We'll come to that later. But to start with, what is the legacy that Dr. Swaminathan is leaving behind?
Well, the rice you eat, the chapatis you have, the rice, wheat, the food we have in India, and I call that the food yarn, is all thanks to the hard work which was put in by Dr. MS Swaminathan and his team. Remember, we were living ship to mouth. There were food shortages. Food grains were being imported. And then came Dr. Swaminathan and the team of the Subramaniam and others, and then they gave India the Green Revolution. And that changed the history of the country. From a food short country, we became now a food surplus country. So every time you have some rice or have some wheat, have a chapati, have rice and sambar, then you need to thank Dr. Swaminathan and his team of agriculture scientists. His legacy is supreme. And in today's context, I would say we would never have had Chandrayaan, the success of that, or the G20 successful summit, if we had remained a food short country. India became food surplus. Who wants to talk to a basket case? India was a basket case 50 years ago. So from there to turn into a country where you became food secure, food independent in a way, that turnaround happened thanks to the very hard work put in by Dr. MS Swaminathan and his foresight and the scientists at the Indian Agricultural Research Institute in New Delhi and plenty of other places. But he was the flag bearer and he gave India what was really required. I pay my tribute to him. I have known him for a very long time. I have lost a great well-wisher in a person like him. But he has left also a great legacy in three daughters, each one better than the other. So there is a little bit of MS Swaminathan which survives, not just in our rice and wheat, but also through the legacy of three very worthy daughters. So it's an amazing journey for the man, and we need to celebrate his journey. The country, while I miss him, but we need to celebrate his the gifts he gave to the country.
So you have rightly said that he changed the history, the course of our agriculture in the 60s when the famine-like situation to a food-sufficient country. He did it by transforming from the traditional agricultural ways to the use of high-yielding varieties, which the Indian farmers are usually reluctant to adapt to. So his journey might have been very hard in the beginning. Don't you think so?
Oh, obviously, any change is very hard to bring out, but he brought in the dwarf high-yielding varieties, but also tribute to our farmers. They embraced it, especially farmers in Western Haryana, Punjab, Western UP. They embraced it in a big way. And it was a top-down effort. The government was also supporting it. The international community was supporting it. But you needed an ambassador in India who could talk to the farmers in a language they understood and they trusted. So that is where Dr. MS Swaminathan's voice became very important. And he went on to hold many positions, and he really changed the course of the country from chip to mouth to food surplus. Today we are exporting food grains. Imagine what a turnaround it has been.
Yeah, true. So also on the other side, he has been like his technique has been criticized for the use of fertilizer, increased use of fertilizers. Even though in the 60s it was a need of the hour, we cannot review that from 2023 because in 1960s the social reality is entirely different. But then he has been attributed the to the increase of use of fertilizers, which and also the promotion of single crops, which depleted the natural capacity of the soil. So, what was his or your take on that? What is your take on that?
Well, if you're hungry, the first job is to put some food or energy into your mouth and body. Uh, India was very, very hungry at that point. Famines were very common. Today, go back to 60s, 70s, and 80s. I have stood in ration queues with my mother to buy rice and wheat. What does today's generation do? They stand in queues in food courts to buy different types of cuisines. So, what a change it has been. So, when you are short of food and you are in famine like situations, the first priority is to make sure that there is enough calories available to the people, which is what happened through Green Revolution. And subsequently, I did speak to him at length, and I have a very detailed interview with Professor Swaminathan on this issue of the downstream effects of Green Revolution. And one of the questions I had asked him was, did he ever imagine that the Green Revolution would lead to causing the widespread air pollution? Remember, the crop-based burning causes a lot of air pollution in northern Indian states. So also some places in the south. But so he said he had imagined and found a solution even when the Green Revolution was being ushered in. He told me, and this is a video which is available on YouTube for anybody to watch. And he said, uh, even as the Green Revolution was being ushered in at a science congress, he had made a plea that the crop waste should be collected. It should be mixed with molasses and a little bit of urea and then made into livestock feed and sent to states, especially like Rajasthan, where they were short of livestock feed. Uh, but he was very unhappy that it was never adhered to, and farmers finally adopted to burning crop waste, which led to serious air pollution. On the same line, he also propagated, while yes, Green Revolution led to a certain bit of monoculture and also increased use of fertilizer and pesticides. But then he also, in his own lifetime, and I remember him speaking very passionately, saying that the time has come to move from green revolution to an evergreen revolution.
Mhm.
So he himself was thinking of the uh, effects of the green revolution, which had led to soil depletion, soil health depletion, and also on human health. He was already talking about ushering in an evergreen revolution where every drop would count, and you would use lower fertilizers and you would use uh, minimum pesticides. Uh, so there is a time and place for everything. And if you see, currently the government is emphasizing very much on organic farming, natural farming, and other things, saying that the green revolution has plateaued and we need to get back to our basics and go on to doing agriculture through natural farming, organic farming, and those techniques. That was always in Dr. Swaminathan's mind. And if you go to the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation in Chennai, a place which is named after him and he was spearheading it for a very long time. You would realize that at that place also there is a lot of talk of ecology and environment systems and environment health, and how all of this would finally contribute to making India more healthy, more robust. And he also spoke about, while we became uh, sufficient in food and the calorie intake became normal, but he also spoke about the hidden hunger, which is to micronutrients and other substances which, especially in younger children, would cause retardation and stunting. So he wanted hidden hunger to be addressed in a very big way. He was a visionary. He remains a person who will influence India in the years to come. And I'm sure many of the policies which he enunciated would finally get some kind of traction. And one is already seeing in the Prime Minister Narendra Modi-led government when they are talking about uh, an organic farming and natural farming being brought in a big way, and the downstream effects of green revolution are being understood. So he also contributed towards that. But
True.
yes, when you were hungry, you needed food, and he
And
gave you that food. So we should be beholden and we should be thankful to Dr. Swaminathan and his teams. And remember, these are not individuals; these are teams.
teams,
So,
yeah.
so he was a flag bearer,
Hmm.
but then nothing happens without teams.
Hmm. So, in the later ages, later period, also he advocated for sustainable agriculture, and I remember that in that controversy regarding the GM crops, that article of which he co-authored and was criticized. In reply to that, he said that it should be green revolution and not greed revolution. He has always maintained that it should be a sustainable agriculture thing. So it doesn't mean that he has, as you have rightly pointed out, the green revolution has plateaued and he has been exploring ways to continue it, isn't it? To find new dimensions.
Absolutely, he was exploring many dimensions. I met him in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis.
Mm.
He was not. He was over 90 years of age, over 95 when I met him. His memory was razor sharp. He was regaling me with different anecdotes and stories of his exploits across the world, and how he was working towards trying to see that the world becomes sustainable and the world becomes less environmentally polluted. So he was talking of all of that, and he, he he was looking at opportunities and options on how to reduce the footprint of the green revolution so as to make it more sustainable and make it more. And he used to use the phrase evergreen revolution, which is why I come back to it again and again. And there are different ways different people interpret it, but he always spoke of it as an evergreen revolution. That would be a good way. Whatever you may say, today, if we fall back on a situation where we have to import food grains, half the country would fall into a disaster-like situation. It is not a tenable situation at all. We came out of that. Uh, the younger generation has not seen those queues of the ration shops, has not seen those red red wheat which came, and the chapatis which were brownish to red in color and were barely eaten by people. I distinctly remember my own mother uh, when I was a young boy. I have just turned 60, so I'm talking of 50 years ago. Uh, and she stopped eating sugar in her tea because there was a rationing and sugar was not available in quantities which could feed the entire family. So she gave up having sugar so that her children could have sugar. And same way, like I said, I have stood in ration queues and bought wheat and rice and sugar in limited quantities. I have seen those days
Yes.
when there were great shortages. So So
True.
anybody who has seen that would be grateful to the team of Indian agriculture scientists who have contributed towards India's development.
Yeah, any mention about the contribution of Dr. Swaminathan will not be complete without the amazing body of work that MS Swaminathan Research Foundation has done, including gene pooling. I think you can add a little bit on that gene pooling efforts that the foundation has done under Dr. Swaminathan's guidance.
Sure, the Swaminathan Foundation itself, even though it sits in the middle of Chennai, in Taramani, uh, is in itself a kind of an island of environmental sustainability and environment science. Uh, and they have collected a lot of different plant varieties there, including rice which can be grown in high saline conditions, especially the conditions along the Kerala coast, from where after the tsunami, the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation collected varieties which survived the tsunami. So there is a lot of work which happened at the Swaminathan Foundation. But now that his daughter, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, who is a medical doctor and who used to be the chief scientist at the World Health Organization, has taken at the helm of the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, I'm hoping the research efforts on both health and agriculture would in a way take off. And that I should also tell you, in the same interview, I asked Dr. Swaminathan, I said, Dr. Swaminathan, as the person who ushered in the Green Revolution, you gave India food and you also gave India paddy straw and wheat straw. And now that air pollution which is being caused, the solutions have to emerge from the stable of Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, who was then the Director General of the Indian Council of Medical Research. So, in tongue in cheek, I said uh, the problems created by the father are now going to be solved by the daughter. That is when he said, see, I thought about these and I gave solutions, but somehow they were never implemented to the extent which they should have been. And he said, I gave those solutions, and there in black and white in a Indian Science Congress address in the last century, where he enunciated some of those solutions.
Yeah.
So the Swaminathan Foundation certainly is going to play a more important role now that Dr. Soumya is taken over as the person spearheading it.
Okay. My question, Baglaji, is that the effort to collect indigenous seeds have been going on right from the early ages when Dr. R.H. Richaria to Cheruvail Raman in Wayanad, a small Kuruchia tribe farmer in Wayanad who has been given the Padma Shri this year, who collected 60 indigenous varieties of rice, which most of them have been on the verge of extinction. These efforts have been going on from the beginning. So, what makes the effort by Dr. Swaminathan and the Swaminathan Research Foundation, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, different and more organized? So, something systematic way which India can look forward to.
Certainly. See, I think we have to look at it from two perspectives. One, the work which is being done by the Swaminathan Research Foundation, which is, if you ask me, more recent, and it's at a much smaller scale, even though it is very directed. But one should not forget that when Dr. Swaminathan was the Director General of the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, and then when he was at the Niti Aayog, and when he was then a member of the Parliament, all of those times, India got its national gene back. And it's the national facility where all the plant varieties of different crops are stored in conditions where they can last a very long time. And it is recognized as a great repository, and it has been much lauded. And that is really our doomsday vault of thoughts, and it sits in New Delhi. And I visited that several times, and it is a place which uh, will help India if things go wrong and we need to find solutions from traditional varieties or from different varieties. The same thing in a smaller way is being done by the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. Obviously, MSSRF does not have the kind of funds and wherewithal to replicate what can be the National Gene Bank. National Gene Bank is a national gene bank. It's a country's asset, a doomsday vault for the country. And he had a role in that. The Indian Agriculture Research Institute, where he was at the genetics department, is forever grateful to him for different things which he did as the director of IARI and then as director general of the ICR, and then he went on to become the director general of the International Rice Research Institute and spearheaded so many different things, including being chairman of the National Farmers Commission. So his contribution to food and agriculture in India
Immense.
is supreme.
Yeah, true. And no wonder the United Nations Environment Program called him the father of economic ecology. So, he found that balance between ecology and the need to have an economic stability in that. So, because thank you for leading us to different facets of this amazing personality, this towering personality. So, before we wind up, I will
Also, let me add something to you.
yeah.
I have known him for a very long time. A very humble person, very soft-spoken, very straightforward in his dealing. He would never. I've known him as a journalist, then I knew him through Dr. Soumya. He would never waffle on a question. If you asked him a straight question, he would give you an answer. Uh, and and I enjoyed interacting with him because of his great insight and his thoughts, which were far beyond the average scientist. And he was not just a scientist, but also a policy maker who was visionary, who was looking at what would happen decades down the line. And I'm a very humble person. Until when I met him last, his memory was razor sharp. He would ask after my family. He would ask after everyone we had met together, and it, it, he has left wonderful memories for me.
True. You're one of the fortunate people who have been traveling with him so long. So to return back to the question, in 2023, we are standing in 2023, and we are looking at a sea of changes happening all around us in ecology, in economics. So what is you started with the legacy that Dr. Swaminathan has left behind for us. So going back to the question, what can we expect, or which path should we take to move forward from 2023, and what are the lessons that the father of economic ecology, Dr. Swaminathan, has been called by UNEP, is leaving for us? What is the path that he is pointing us to?
See, he pointed a direction long ago. Again, I go back to the phrase he called, which was evergreen revolution. He said, we need a revolution. We can't go back to using traditional varieties which will give only low yields. There is no way we can go back. But yes, the high yielding varieties have had their downstream problems. So let's find solutions. And let's go in for what we called was an evergreen revolution, where you would not require so much fertilizer, lower use of pesticides, and at the same time, try and maintain the yield. And somewhere I see that reflection happening in the current government when uh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself has become a votary of organic farming and natural farming. And we are seeing organic farming and natural farming uh, taking off in such a big way. Even in the midst of Haryana, you have large organic farms. So somewhere, slowly but steadily, a dent is being made. And somewhere, people will remember that there was once a giant who contributed from India becoming from food deficient to becoming food secure and then becoming food independent, to now exporting food grains, not just basmati, but also other grains. So these are very happy memories from a person who was a visionary. And I am very grateful to him. He spent a lot of time with me on different occasions. I spent time with him in his office in Chennai, in the field with him, in IRI. He always had something to give and contribute.
Thank you, Pallava Bagla ji. It has been nice chatting with you about a visionary who has set the course for Indian, not in Indian agriculture, the way our nation can be self-sufficient. Thanks a lot in joining us, the AIDEM Interactions, in remembering Dr. MS Swaminathan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.